Finn Cambridge was born with a silver blueprint in his hand. To the world, he was the heir to Cambridge Construction, an empire of concrete, steel, and strategy. The family name was stamped on everything from shopping centers in Chicago to sleek medical campuses in Austin. But inside that legacy, behind the polished family photos and press releases, Finn was just a boy trying to breathe under the weight of expectations. His sister, Diana, was his shadow and his compass. Where Finn was quiet and precise, Diana was bold and untamed. Together, they endured the endless schedules, networking dinners, and public appearances that came with being a Cambridge. But it was the summers that saved them. Every June, like clockwork, they escaped to the hills of Vermont, where their grandmother Charlotte lived in a crooked old farmhouse wrapped in ivy and sunlight. There, they could be kids. There were no suits or speeches, just bare feet in the garden, flour on their hands in the kitchen, and guitar strings vibrating under Charlotte's patient guidance. Charlotte never once mentioned the family name. She didn't care about legacy. She taught them how to roast tomatoes, patch up fences, and find the rhythm in their own voices. With her, they weren't heirs. They were simply Finn and Diana. But their mother, Hazel Cambridge, never truly let go. Even from hundreds of miles away, she kept a grip on everything. Hazel didn't just run Cambridge Construction. She was the brand. Calculated, impeccable, ruthless when needed. Every choice was strategic. Every moment had a purpose. And her children were no exception. To Hazel, summers with Charlotte were a wild card. Too unstructured, too sentimental. She saw Charlotte's influence as a threat, an indulgence that weakened the image she spent her life curating. So while Finn learned chords and baked pies, Hazel watched from afar, waiting for the day she could reel him back in and mold him into the man the company needed. But that summer, the one where Finn met Piper Newberry, Hazel's grip would start to slip, and nothing would ever be the same. Finn first saw her through the diner window. It was late June, the kind of sticky summer morning that made the pavement shimmer and the air smell like sun-baked pine. He and Diana had stopped in for milkshakes after a morning fixing the fence with Charlotte, their hands still stained from paint and dirt. Piper was behind the counter, hair twisted in a messy bun, pad and pen tucked behind one ear. She was moving fast, refilling coffee, balancing plates, smiling with her whole face. There was something about the way she carried herself, confident but not showy, focused but relaxed. She looked like someone who belonged to herself. Diana nudged Finn under the table. "You're staring." He didn't argue. He was. Piper came over, scribbled on her notepad, and asked what they wanted. Her voice was warm, clear, and just a little amused. "You're the Cambridge kids, right?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Diana smiled. "Depends who's asking." Finn said nothing. He was still trying to find his words. "Relax," Piper said, her grin widening. "I'm not the press." From that moment, something shifted. It wasn't love at first sight. It was sharper than that, undeniable and immediate, like they had already met in 1,000 different ways before. Piper Newberry wasn't impressed by names. Her father was the high school principal, and her mother ran the city budget. She grew up with expectations too, but unlike the Cambridges, her parents didn't measure her worth by reputation. They measured it by how hard she worked, how kind she was, and how well she kept her promises. She wanted more, though. Piper had dreams pinned to the walls of her bedroom. Acceptance letters, city maps, handwritten goals. She was leaving for college in the fall, headed to a university 3 states away. She planned to study public relations, maybe work in nonprofit advocacy. She wanted to matter, but on her own terms. The more time she and Finn spent together, the more those dreams began to curve toward each other's future. It wasn't just summer romance. It was a quiet kind of certainty that scared them both. They started small. Walks down Main Street, sitting on the porch steps at Charlotte's house, watching fireflies. Piper taught Finn how to flip pancakes without using a spatula. He taught her a few chords on the guitar. She made fun of his calluses. He teased her about her notebook full of color-coded plans. But it wasn't just the two of them. Diana and Piper became inseparable. The kind of quick, electric friendship that only happens when both people are hungry for someone who understands. When Piper wasn't with Finn, she was with Diana, trying new eyeliner tricks, braiding each other's hair, talking about the boys they liked and the futures they were building in their journals. Sometimes Piper slept over at the farmhouse. They'd drag sleeping bags into the living room and stay up half the night talking. Diana confessed her frustration at always being second to Finn, how Hazel didn't see her as a future CEO, but as decoration. Piper listened, really listened, and never once looked at Diana like she was less than her last name. "She's real," Diana told Finn one night, barefoot on the porch swing. "I think that's why you like her." "I think I love her," Finn said, the words surprising even himself. And he did. Not in the dramatic, things-going-like and cinematic way he thought love would feel, but in the everyday moments. The way Piper laughed when she forgot her keys. The way she always knew when someone needed a break, or a joke, or a minute of silence. The way she never flinched at his silences, or let him get away with saying nothing when it counted. It was only July, but they talked like September didn't exist. They made plans to keep in touch, to visit on weekends, to stay together, even when school started. Piper told him she had gotten into the same college he was going to. It felt like fate had finally decided to be generous. What they didn't know, what neither of them could have guessed, was that someone else had already started rewriting the end of their summer. But for now, it was all sun, music, and possibility. For now, love felt simple, and that was enough. By early August, everything felt set in motion. Finn and Piper had chosen their classes, registered for housing, and mapped out a future that finally felt within reach. They had a shared folder of dorm decor ideas, playlists for road trips, and a running list of weekend date spots near campus. It wasn't just talk. They were doing this. Diana was in on it too. She helped Piper shop for supplies, practiced mock interviews, and reassured her brother whenever doubt crept in. "You're allowed to have something that's yours," she told him. "You don't need permission to be happy." But Finn should have known everything wouldn't stay hidden for long. Hazel Cambridge always knew more than she let on. Nothing in her world was unaccounted for. Not in business, not in family. She had her ways. A stray piece of mail, an overheard call, a name she cross-referenced in an admissions list. That's how she found out. Piper Newberry was going to the same college as her son. Hazel didn't confront Finn. She didn't shout or slam doors. She didn't need to. Instead, she sent him an email from her assistant. An invitation to an incredible opportunity. A fast-tracked international program based in London, focusing on global construction policy and strategic leadership. It sounded impressive. It sounded important. But it was fiction, dressed in prestige. When Finn brought it up at dinner, Hazel barely looked up from her tablet. "Of course you'll go," she said simply. "It's a rare chance. I've already confirmed your spot." "But school?" he asked. "I'm registered and I already—" "You can defer. This is bigger. Cambridge Construction needs you to start thinking globally." He stared at her. This wasn't even on the table. Hazel finally looked up. "Sometimes life doesn't wait for you to catch up, Finn." That was her way of saying the decision had already been made. And deep down, Finn knew why. Still, He didn't believe she'd go so far. When he told Piper, she went quiet. "That doesn't make sense," she said slowly. "You didn't even apply to that program." "I didn't," he replied. "She must have pulled strings." "Because of me?" Finn didn't answer. He didn't have to. They spent the next few days trying to undo what had been done. Emails were sent, calls were made, but nothing changed. Hazel had greased the wheels, sealed the path, and blocked every exit. "You're still leaving?" Piper asked on their last night together. "I don't want to," he said, holding her hand so tightly it hurt. "We can do long distance. We can still—" But something had shifted in her. She nodded, but her eyes stayed downcast. The next morning, she was cold, distant, not angry, just absent. "I think we need to let this go," she told him. "It's too much. You're going. I'll be fine." It didn't make sense. She had been all in. The day before, she was writing love letters in her diary. Now she was pushing him away. "I don't understand," Finn said, pacing her porch. "We still have time. 2 weeks. Piper, please." She didn't answer. The next day, she was gone. Her parents said she'd left early for orientation. Finn checked. The college had no record of her. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. Then Charlotte died. Just like that, sudden, unexpected, and cruel. Finn and Diana were pulled into grief, the last string of safety and honesty in their world cut. What Finn didn't know, what he wouldn't find out for years, was that Piper had taken a test 3 days after he told her he was leaving. She was pregnant. Hazel found out within a week. She came to the dyno, cool and collected, and sat across from Piper like it was a business meeting. "If you tell him," Hazel said, "your father loses his job. This town will know every detail. You'll have nothing. Think carefully." Piper didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just nodded. And when Hazel left, Piper packed her bags. That's how it ended. No goodbye. No explanation. Just a hole where something beautiful had lived. Finn left for London a week later, never knowing what he was really leaving behind. Piper Newberry didn't sleep much that first month. She hadn't told her parents. Not yet. They were proud people, rule followers who lived by public perception. Her father had served as principal of the high school for nearly 2 decades. Her mother balanced the city budget and sat on 2 local boards. Everything about their lives was structured, polished, and rooted in their last name. And Piper? Piper had just thrown a grenade into that image. She wanted to call Finn every day. She wanted to tell him everything. Cry, scream. Demand answers. Ask him why he gave up so easily. But Hazel's threat rang louder in her ears than any emotion. "If you tell him, your father loses his job." Hazel hadn't shouted. She hadn't even raised her voice. She simply slid a folder across the table. Evidence of disciplinary write-ups. Budget discrepancies from 15 years ago. Things that could be twisted, weaponized. "She'll do it," Piper's mother said quietly after Hazel left. "That woman doesn't bluff." So Piper stayed silent. She dropped her college plans. She told friends that life had changed, that she needed time. Most people assumed money problems or family obligations. No one asked too many questions. When she told her parents about the baby, her mother cried. Her father sat stone-faced, staring at a chipped mug in his hands. But they didn't abandon her. They cleared out the guest room. Her mother came home early on doctor appointment days. Her father mowed the lawn twice a week, like nothing had changed. It was love, in its own rigid way. When Iris was born, Piper felt like she had been split open twice. Once by pain, and again by love. Iris Hope Newberry arrived 3 weeks early, quiet at first, then loud and full of fire. Her heart murmur was diagnosed before Piper even held her. The doctor said it was manageable, not urgent, but something to watch. "She's strong," the nurse said. "You'll see." Piper did see. Every day. Iris was small but fierce. She had Finn's eyes, steel blue, impossible to ignore, and Charlotte's dimple when she smiled. Piper tried not to think too much about it, tried to be present, tried not to want, but want crept in anyway. She watched the mail for Finn's name. Every time someone mentioned Cambridge construction in the news, she'd tense up. She searched for photos of him online. Clean-cut, sharp-suited, eyes colder with each passing year. He had become the man Hazel always wanted, and she hated that he didn't know about Iris. Piper finished her associate's degree online, then got her real estate license. She worked for a small local agency at first, then branched out, building a modest reputation for being sharp, honest, and fast. She never made much, but it was enough. Enough to keep Iris in good schools. Enough to put away a little each month. Enough to get by. But by the time Iris turned 12, enough wasn't enough anymore. Her heart condition had worsened. Not suddenly, just slowly, steadily, the way a leak becomes a flood. Medications changed. Appointments increased. The insurance company denied 2 major claims in 1 year. Piper was exhausted. She met someone, a kind, financially secure man who offered stability, not passion. He was gentle with Iris, respectful with her, and very clear about his intentions. Marriage would mean good coverage, financial relief, security. Piper said yes. Iris said no. Then Cambridge stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, staring down at the city below, like it might offer answers he already knew too well. His office, top floor, sharp angles, polished stone, felt more like a fortress than a workspace. It overlooked the skyline, an endless stretch of towers and traffic. One of them, a sprawling multi-use complex still under construction, was his. Just like the 3 in Boston, and the 2 in Seattle, and the 6 in Texas, Cambridge construction was no longer a rising star. It was the sun, and he had become its center. But today, it felt like standing in glass. He sipped his coffee, black and burned, and tried not to think about London, or Piper, or the boy he used to be before legacy became currency and distance turned into armor. London was where it started. He hadn't fought hard enough. He knew that now. At the time, he told himself it was temporary. Just a year, maybe 2. Piper would wait. Their connection had felt unbreakable. Then she vanished. No note, no call, not even a goodbye. One day, they were planning their life together, and the next, she was gone, like a pulled thread, nothing but unraveling in her place. He searched, quietly, discreetly, because in Hazel's world, privacy was power, and asking too many questions made you weak. College came and went. So did parties, mentors, awards, meaningless flings. He absorbed lectures about global development and structural innovation, while something colder formed under his ribs. His mind sharpened, but his heart dulled. Hazel had done what she always did. Smiled, planned, manipulated, and won. He never found proof she was behind it, but he felt her fingerprints on the silence, the same way he knew the exact weight of her expectations. His father died the year after he graduated. The funeral was small, efficient, Hazel style. Diana cried quietly through the service. Finn didn't cry at all. After that, the company was his. At first, it was survival. Then it was expansion. Then domination. Finn became exactly what the industry needed. Relentless, unflinching, brilliant. Boardroom doors opened before he even knocked. Developers bent to his vision. Competitors watched him with quiet respect and a hint of fear. He reshaped cities. He built things that would outlast him. But somewhere along the way, he forgot how to feel anything that wasn't measurable. He hadn't picked up a guitar in years. He couldn't remember the last time he cooked anything that didn't come in a sealed container or arrive in a black car. He hadn't set foot in Vermont since Charlotte died. Every now and then, he thought about Piper, usually late at night, when the city lights blurred just enough to soften the edges. He'd wonder if she was happy, if she had someone, if she hated him. Finn turned from the window and faced the room. His phone buzzed with another meeting alert. Deals, deadlines. The machine didn't stop, and neither did he. He was the man Hazel had raised him to be. Efficient, feared, unshakable, and completely alone. The thought of her mother marrying a man for money made Iris Newberry sick. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't noble. It was survival, her mother said. Bills were piling up, and the next surgery was going to cost more than they could ever afford on Piper's commission checks. But Iris wasn't interested in sacrifice, not like that. Not when the man who should have been helping was still out there, living large in New York City. Her father, Finn Cambridge. She'd read the diary entries 100 times. The handwriting changed slightly over the years, shakier in some places, pressed harder in others. But the truth was always there. Her mother had loved Finn. He had loved her. Then one day, it all ended, and no one ever explained why. Until Iris found the threats. Folded neatly between pages in the back, there it was, Hazel Cambridge's ultimatum. Keep the baby a secret, or watch your father lose everything. Iris had never hated anyone before. But in that moment, she felt it burn. She showed her cousin Katie, who was home she just finishing her last year of high school. Katie, accepted to 3 colleges, including NYU. Come with me, Katie said. We'll say we're touring the campus. My parents will be fine with it. It was perfect. Katie hesitated when Iris brought it up, seeing her dad. But New York is huge. You can't just show up at a man's office and expect. I'm not expecting anything, Iris said. I just want him to know I exist. She packed the diary, a copy of her birth certificate, and a small envelope marked with one word, Starbright, her nickname since she was little. Whispered between lullabies and written in the margins of storybooks her mother used to read. The plane touched down just after noon. A black car met them at the airport, arranged by Katie's father. Where are we going? Katie asked as Iris gave the driver a slip of paper. Iris didn't look up from her bag. To see my father. The car pulled up in front of a gleaming skyscraper, with tinted windows and mirrored glass. Cambridge HQ. Bold letters carved in steel across the front. Katie stared out the window. I thought we were going to a campus tour. We are, Iris said, stepping out. After this. Inside, the lobby was all marble. Inside, the lobby was all marble, chrome, and silence. Men and women in suits passed by quickly, barely glancing at the 2 teens standing near the front desk. A security guard approached. Do you have an appointment? No, Iris replied calmly. But I have a message. She scribbled, Starbright, in looping letters on a piece of a stationery, folded it once, and handed it over. Please get this to Mr. Finn Cambridge. The man frowned, but nodded. Wait here. Upstairs, Finn was mid-sentence in a board meeting when his assistant stepped in, pale and cautious. This just came for you. I thought you'd want to see it. He opened the note. One word, no context, no signature, Starbright. His throat tightened instantly. The word knocked something loose, something buried deep. He hadn't heard it in over a decade. Only one person ever used it. And she hadn't used it alone. He stood. "Who brought this?" he demanded. "Two young women," the assistant said. "Teenagers. They're in the lobby." Finn didn't respond. He was already walking. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, but the tension that followed hit like a thunderclap. Finn Cambridge stepped into the lobby, and everything stopped. He was a man known for his silence, for the storm he carried in his stare, and the way his presence could clear a boardroom with a single glance. But now, he stood frozen, ashen, breath caught in his throat, as his eyes locked onto the girl in front of him. Iris. She stood with her shoulders back, chin up, nerves rippling just beneath her calm. Katie sat nearby, watching with wide eyes. But it was Iris who owned the moment. Finn's voice was low, rough. "What's your name?" The girl didn't flinch. "My name is Iris Charlotte Newberry," she said. "But my nickname is Starbright." The name cracked through him like lightning. Finn staggered a half step forward. He stared at her, at the dark eyes shaped like pipers, the curve of her jaw, the stubborn tilt of her mouth. She looked just like her mother, smooth cocoa skin color, just like the girl he lost. "I'm here," Iris continued, her voice steady, "because I need your help. My mother is going to marry a man she doesn't love, just to save me." She paused, eyes shining. "I have a heart condition. I'm not dying today, but I might die soon if I don't get the surgery I need, and she can't afford it. She thinks this marriage is her only option. ... Finn stepped closer. "Are you saying?" Iris looked up at him, steady and brave. "Are you my daughter?" he asked. Silence stretched between them. Then, "Yes," she whispered, voice cracking. And suddenly, the cold, distant man the world had come to fear vanished. Finn's hand lifted to her face, trembling as he brushed a tear from her cheek. She didn't pull away. He cupped her face like it was something fragile, something he hadn't been allowed to touch in a lifetime. Then he pulled her into his arms. Iris sank against him without hesitation, the weight of a lifetime closing in. Her small frame shook against his chest, and he held her tighter, his jaw clenched, eyes wet. Everyone in the lobby was watching. Assistants paused mid-call. Executives stepped out of elevators and stopped cold. Security guards exchanged glances. The unshakable Finn Cambridge, that Finn, was hugging a girl no one had ever seen before, like she was air and blood and memory all at once. He didn't care. He wasn't letting go. Not again. The silence inside Finn's office was deafening as Iris finished explaining everything. How Piper never hid the truth. How her name came from two people Finn once loved deeply. His grandmother Charlotte and the iris flower she taught him to plant the summer he turned 13. "I was never a secret," Iris said softly, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "Not to my mom, only to you." Finn didn't speak. He couldn't. His hands were clenched so tightly the skin had gone white. The office lights glared down on him, sterile and sharp. But all he could see were shadows. Piper's face, the last time he saw her. His mother's steady lies. The years he'd spent believing he'd been abandoned, when in truth, she had been stolen from him. He stood up and walked over to the bar in the corner of his office, poured himself a shot of whiskey, drank it, then poured another. This one he held. "Come with me," he said suddenly. His voice was calm, too calm. Iris and Katie exchanged glances, but they followed him into the private elevator that led to the penthouse above the office. His sanctuary, his prison, and now the place where all the pieces were falling apart. He didn't say a word as they entered. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, glass in hand, shoulders stiff with the weight of realization. The city buzzed below, unaware that a man at the top of it all was unraveling. 10 minutes later, the elevator chimed again. Diana. She stepped into the penthouse, heels clicking against the marble floor. Her tone was light at first, familiar. "What's going on, big brother? You sounded—" She stopped mid-step, eyes locking on the two girls standing by the staircase. Her voice caught. "Who are you?" Finn turned slowly, eyes dark, face unreadable. He pointed to Iris. "Your niece," he said. Then he nodded at Katie. "And her cousin." Diana's jaw dropped. "Wait, what? Niece? That's not possible. I don't—" "Piper," Iris said quietly, stepping forward. "Piper Newberry is my mother." Diana's hand flew to her chest. "Piper? From Vermont?" Iris nodded. "Yes." Diana took a shaky breath, still staring. "But we never knew. No one ever told us. Why?" That's when Finn laughed. It wasn't light. It wasn't amused. It was hollow and bitter, and laced with so much fury, it cracked through the room like thunder. "Our mother," he sneered. "Our perfect, brilliant, manipulative mother." He slammed the whiskey glass onto the nearest table, splashing amber liquid across polished wood. "She lied to me. She lied to Piper. She threatened her, said she'd destroy Piper's father if she told me the truth. And she did it all while I was grieving Charlotte, while I was trying to make sense of why the girl I loved walked out without a word." He grabbed the glass again and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall in a spray of glass and fire. Iris flinched. Diana jumped. Instinctively, Diana rushed to Iris, pulling her into her arms, shielding her from the raw heat of her brother's rage. Katie stepped aside, stunned and unsure, caught in a world far too heavy for her. Finn stormed down the hallway, the sound of his footsteps echoing off stone. The door to his bedroom slammed behind him, loud and final. Silence. Diana sat down slowly on the couch, Iris beside her. She kept one arm around the girl's shoulder, the other wiping a tear that had already slipped down her cheek. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "He's not like that, not usually." "I understand," Iris said softly. "He's hurt." Diana nodded. "He loved your mom, more than I think anyone realized. And I don't think he ever stopped." She looked at Iris then, really looked at her. The eyes, the posture, the quiet strength. It was uncanny. It was undeniable. "You look just like her," Diana murmured. "I should have known the second I saw you." "I didn't want to hurt him," Iris said, voice trembling. "I just wanted him to be with me." Diana squeezed her hand. "You didn't hurt him. You woke him up." They sat like that for a while, the night stretching around them like a held breath. Eventually, Katie curled up on the other end of the couch, half listening, half processing. Diana kept glancing at the hallway, waiting for her brother to come back out. But part of her knew he needed time to think, to feel, to collapse and rebuild. Because the truth had cracked him open. And love, real, raw love, was rushing back in. Piper sat at the kitchen table, the phone in her hand, stomach in knots. The sun had set hours ago, but she hadn't heard from the girls all day. She had called 3 times, texted twice, no response. The silence chewed through her calm. Finally, the screen lit up. Iris. She swiped to answer so fast, she almost dropped the phone. "Hello? Hi, Mom." Iris's voice came through, light and casual, but slightly rushed. "Sorry, it's been kind of a mess. The plane was stuck on the runway for like an hour, and then it took forever to get our luggage." Piper exhaled, her body sagging in relief. I was starting to worry. "We're okay," Iris said. "Promise. Just tired." Piper closed her eyes and smiled. "You sound happy." "I'm okay," Iris repeated, softer now. They talked for a few more minutes. About the city, the weather, the noise. Iris didn't mention Finn. And when they said goodbye, it lingered a little longer than usual. As soon as the call ended, Iris turned to Katie and whispered, "She doesn't know we're going to Vermont yet." Back at the penthouse, Finn stood in the hallway, finally composed, his jaw tight with purpose. Diana looked up from the couch, eyes still glassy from earlier. "Are you okay?" "No," he said. "But I'm not wasting another second." He crossed to the hall closet and grabbed his coat. "Pack a bag," he told her. "We're going to Vermont." Diana blinked. "Now?" He nodded. "I need to see her. I need to see Piper." Meanwhile, in a quiet restaurant on the edge of town, Piper sat across from Frank, the man who was supposed to be her solution. Dinner had been fine. The wine was fine. Frank's pressed shirt and rehearsed smile were fine. But something fell off. He tapped his fingers against the table, impatiently. "So," he said, "have you had time to think more about our timeline?" Piper cut her steak, swallowing a sigh. "We haven't set a date yet, Frank." "I know," he said, "but Iris's condition isn't going to wait. The longer we delay—" "I'm aware," she interrupted, "but it's not that simple." Frank leaned forward, his voice low. "You're the parent, you know what's best for her. She doesn't get to make those choices." That made Piper pause. Something in his tone, sharp, condescending, rubbed against her instincts. Before, he had been kind, supportive, understanding. Now, he sounded like someone drawing up contracts. "She's not some disobedient teenager," Piper said, her voice firm. "She's thoughtful, and she's scared. She's allowed to have opinions." Frank sighed, exasperated. "Well, when we get married, there'll be more structure. I mean, letting her run off to New York with a girl barely out of high school? Katie's not equipped for that." Piper straightened. "Katie has a higher IQ than both of us combined, and she's been Iris's best friend since she could walk. She's more than capable." Frank's lips tightened, but he didn't speak. Piper pushed her plate aside. She'd lost her appetite. "I have an early morning. I'm going to head home." Frank nodded, too quickly. "Of course. Rest is important." He leaned in for a kiss, but she turned her face away. "Good night, Frank." She unlocked her front door 10 minutes later and stepped inside to darkness and silence. She dropped her purse on the floor and walked straight to the couch. For a moment, she stood there, unmoving. Then she lowered herself into the cushions like her body couldn't hold itself up anymore. The tears came slowly at first, quiet, then heavier. She cried into her hands, alone with the weight of decisions no mother should have to make. Love had failed her once. Her body had betrayed her daughter with a weak heart, and now she was standing at the edge of something she didn't believe in. Marrying a man she didn't love to save the one thing she couldn't bear to lose, her baby girl. "I can't lose her," she whispered into the dark. "I'll do anything." But the words felt brittle. They cracked before they reached her own ears. She thought of Iris's face, bright, stubborn, too wise for her age. She thought of the way she smiled when the wind caught her curls just right. The way she hummed old songs under her breath. The way she still called her mama when she was scared. Piper curled up on the couch and pulled the throw blanket over her chest. And somewhere, beneath the fear and the guilt, a new feeling stirred. Doubt. Because this wasn't love, and it sure as hell wasn't the future she wanted her daughter to see. The drive into Vermont was quiet. No one talked much. The silence wasn't awkward. It was thick with anticipation. The trees were just starting to change, the leaves rustling in a language only people born here could understand. For Finn, it was a memory. For Iris, it was new and old all at once. They rented a car at the airport, a gray SUV that fit all four of them. Finn drove. Diana sat in the passenger seat, stealing glances at him. He looked calm, but she could see the storm beneath the surface. Jaw tight, hands gripping the wheel, shoulders locked in silent war with himself. Katie gave directions to her house. When they reached her driveway, she turned to Iris, reluctant to leave. "Are you sure you're okay?" Iris nodded. "Yeah, thank you for everything." Katie looked to Finn. "You'll take care of her?" Finn met her eyes. "With my life." Katie hesitated, then nodded. "I'll keep my mouth shut. But please call me." "I will," Iris promised. The car pulled away, tires crunching on gravel, and turned toward the small yellow house at the end of Maple Drive. The lights were off, but Finn could see the faint glow of the TV through the front window. When they parked, Iris was the first to move. She walked to the door slowly, her feet suddenly heavy. She opened it gently, the familiar creak echoing like a whisper. Inside, everything was still. Piper lay on the sofa, a blanket tangled around her legs, her head turned toward the room. Sleeping. Iris stepped forward, her heart pounding. She crouched down beside the couch, brushed a strand of hair from her mother's face, and whispered, "Mom, I'm home." Piper stirred. She blinked, confused, then startled upright when she saw Iris. "Iris? What are you? How did you—" Before she could finish, another figure stepped inside the room. Finn. Piper froze. He walked slowly toward her, every step like crossing time itself. Then he dropped to his knees on the floor in front of her, his head tilted back so he could see her face, just as he remembered it. The same eyes, the same strength, the same woman who had once held his whole world in her hands. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Tears slid down his cheeks. And then he laid his head in her lap. Piper didn't move for a beat. Her hands hovered, unsure, caught between shock and instinct. Then she folded herself over him. She buried her face in his hair and held him the way she used to, like he was still 18 and lost and hers. The sobs shook through him. Not loud, but deep, the kind that had waited years to be set free. "I didn't know," he whispered. "I tried," she said. "I wanted to tell you. I would have come back. I would have." "I know," she said softly. "I know." Behind them, Iris stood silently, her heart both breaking and mending at once. Diana walked over gently, touched her shoulder. "Come on," she said with a small smile. "Let's give them a minute." She took Iris's hand and led her into the kitchen. The overhead light hummed. Diana opened a cabinet, pulled out 2 mismatched mugs, and filled them with water from the tap. "You okay?" she asked. "I think so," Iris said. "I've never seen my mom cry like that." Diana handed her a mug. "He's been living like a ghost for years. You just brought him back." They sat at the small breakfast table, the hum of the house filling the quiet. From the living room came the low sound of voices, raw, breaking, real. "You're brave, you know," Diana added. Iris looked down into her cup. "I just wanted my mom to be happy, and not alone. She won't be, not anymore." For the first time in days, Iris let herself believe it might actually be true. Hazel Cambridge didn't like surprises. So when her assistant informed her that Finn's private jet had left New York airspace and landed in Vermont, she didn't panic. She called Frank Myers. He answered on the 3rd ring, his voice casual, as if he hadn't just blown the one job she paid him to do. "What's taking you so long?" Hazel said flatly, skipping any pleasantries. The deal was simple. Marry the woman, gain legal guardianship, control the medical decisions. "Why isn't it done?" Frank hesitated. "She hasn't committed yet. She's hesitant. The daughter's resisting. She? Hazel snapped. That daughter is why you're getting paid. You think I care about your feelings? My son is in Vermont, right now. That girl went to him. Frank went silent. I'll make this simple, Hazel continued. You get Piper to marry you, or you don't get paid. Is that clear? From the outer office, Hazel's assistant froze. She had paused on her way in with a document for signature, but now stood completely still, processing what she'd just overheard. Willow Creek was a small town. Secrets didn't stay quiet long. The next morning, Frank showed up at Piper's doorstep with manufactured worry stitched across his face. He knocked twice, smoothed his hair, and rehearsed his lines. You left dinner early. I was worried. I care about you. I'm here for you. But when the door opened, it wasn't Piper who greeted him. It was Iris. She stood there, arms crossed, her chin lifted the same way Finn's did when he was done pretending to be polite. Frank's face drained of color. Iris, he said, forcing a tight smile. Where's your mother? And why are you home? Iris didn't answer. Before she could close the door in his face, another figure appeared behind her. Tall, calm, and unreadable. Finn. He stepped forward, his hand resting gently on Iris's shoulder. His voice was low and lethal. You will not talk to my daughter that way. Frank blinked. Excuse me? You heard me, Finn said. If you have a problem, you can speak to Piper, but you don't raise your voice at Iris. Frank's mask cracked. This is between me and my future wife. Iris will soon be my daughter too. I have a right. No, Finn said, stepping forward now, his tone dropping an octave. You have nothing. Not here, not anymore. Frank's voice rose, defensive now. And who are you to say that? Where have you been for 13 years? You disappear, and now suddenly you care. Finn's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. My whereabouts are none of your concern, he said coldly. But this. He gestured toward Iris, toward the home behind them. This is my family, and you need to walk away, now. Frank opened his mouth, then looked into Finn's eyes, and saw something that made him rethink his next move. He turned sharply, muttering under his breath, and stormed down the steps. Iris exhaled slowly. Finn put a hand on the doorframe, watching Frank's car pull away. Is your mother home? She's upstairs, Iris said. She was lying down. I'll talk to her, Finn said gently. You okay? Iris nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. Yeah. I don't like how he talks to her. You never have to deal with that again, Finn said. Behind them, Diana stood in the kitchen doorway, arms folded, her face tight with fury. She'd heard everything. Hazel Cambridge didn't notice the assistant standing by the door. She was too busy issuing threats. As she ended the call with Frank, satisfied with her pressure tactics, her assistant quietly backed out of the office. Her face was pale, hands shaking. Hazel's words still echoed in her head like a siren. You don't get paid unless she marries him. That wasn't strategy. That was blackmail. And something about my son is in Vermont hit wrong. She moved quickly, slipping into a quiet corner of the office, tapping out a brief, urgent message to a number she never thought she'd use. To Amelia Woods, Finn's assistant. Message. Hazel is trying to force Piper to marry a man. Paid him off. She knows Finn is in Vermont. Said the girl is the reason. Please warn him. She hit send. Whatever happened next wasn't her problem anymore. In Vermont, Finn paced the living room, mind racing. His arms were crossed, head down, mind flipping through every possible way to gain legal access to Iris's medical records. Piper was the custodial parent. She had the final say, but he needed to know everything. Every risk, every treatment, every chance of saving his daughter. Piper came down the stairs slowly, still unaware of what had just happened at the front door. Her eyes were red, but her spine was straight. She saw Finn's face and froze. "Iris?" she asked, panic rising. "Is she okay?" "She's fine," Finn said. "Now, but we need to talk. About her condition, her doctors, insurance, options. I need details." Piper nodded. "I'll show you everything. I have her files." But before she could say anything more, the door burst open again. Frank. He hadn't gone far. "I'm not done," he shouted, walking in like he owned the place. Piper spun around. "What are you doing here?" "We're not finished talking," Frank snapped. "You walk out of dinner like I insulted you. Then your daughter's long-lost father shows up, and suddenly I'm the bad guy?" "You are the bad guy. We know about your deal with Hazel," Piper said, her voice razor-sharp. "You lied, you manipulated me, and you let Hazel Cambridge use you." Frank went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I heard enough," she said, "and Iris told me what you said at the door. You want control? You want decisions made behind her back?" "No, absolutely not." "You need me," Frank said, trying to pull back his composure. "You said so yourself. The money, the care, the insurance." "I needed a solution," Piper interrupted. "I didn't realize I was inviting in a problem." Finn stood behind her, silent but unwavering. Frank looked at him sneering. "So that's it? He waltzes in after 13 years and suddenly everything's forgiven?" Piper stepped closer, chin high. "I never stopped loving him." The room froze. Even Finn blinked at the words, stunned still by how fast and true they came. "I loved him then. I love him now," Piper said, softer this time, but firmer. "And I'll figure out Iris's care without selling myself to someone I don't trust." Frank's face twisted, but he saw the truth in her eyes. It was over. "You'll regret this," he said. "No," Piper replied, calm and final. "I regret ever letting you through that door." Frank turned and stormed out, this time for good. Piper turned to Finn, her breath unsteady. "I didn't plan for any of this," she whispered. "I just wanted to keep her safe." Finn stepped toward her. "You did." She reached for his hand and he took it. They didn't need to say anything else. Not right now. There was a daughter to think about, a future uncertain, and a battle still ahead. But for the first time in years, they were in it together. The kitchen table was covered in papers, medical records, insurance denials, printed test results, and handwritten notes from specialists across 3 counties. Piper moved through them with quiet precision, her fingertips brushing each page like it might disappear if she blinked. Finn sat beside her, silent but focused. He had a legal pad in front of him, notes scribbled in his sharp, slanted handwriting. His jaw was tight, but his voice had softened. It was the first time in years he was thinking with his heart instead of only his mind. "She was diagnosed at birth," Piper explained, her voice steady but weary. "The murmur didn't seem dangerous at first. Her pediatrician monitored it, and for years it was manageable." Finn nodded, eyes scanning the report. "What changed?" Piper pointed to a cardiology note. "Growth, puberty, hormonal shifts. Last year she started having dizzy spells and chest tightness. Her cardiologist said the valve pressure has worsened." "And the insurance?" "They covered the monitoring," she said bitterly, "but not the procedure. We appealed, denied again and again." Finn's hands curled into fists. "Let me handle it. My legal team will file an emergency override. We'll find the best pediatric cardiac surgeon in the country. Hell, in the world. I'll pay for every test, every hospital stay, everything." "Finn," Piper interrupted gently. "I know," he said, "but I'm her father, and I should have been doing this from the beginning." Piper looked at him then, really looked. The steel was still there, But so was something else: regret and love. He wasn't just the man she used to know. He was something more. He was showing up. "She needs you," she said softly. "I need her," he replied. Across the state line, in a glass-walled office high above the city, Hazel Cambridge was already working. Her assistant was gone, quit that morning without a word. A gut feeling told Hazel she hadn't quit for no reason. She dialed a private number. Her lawyer answered on the second name. "I want to know what my son is doing in Vermont. I want to know who he's talking to, where he's staying, and if Piper Newberry has filed any legal claims involving him or that child." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Hazel, may I suggest?" "You may not," she snapped. "Just do it." When she hung up, Hazel stared at the family portrait on her desk. Her husband, long gone. Her daughter, silent. Her son, her legacy, slipping through her fingers like dust. She picked up her phone again. "Get the plane ready," she told the operator. "I'm going to Vermont." Back in the farmhouse, Diana walked in with hot chocolate for Iris and Piper, handing Finn a mug of black coffee with a knowing smirk. "You're pacing like you're planning a hostile takeover," she teased. He didn't laugh. "I'm expecting one," he muttered. Piper raised an eyebrow. "From who?" "Hazel." Diana blinked. "You think she'll come here?" "I don't think," he said. "I know. And when she does, she's going to try and take back control of the story." Iris looked between them, suddenly uneasy. "What does that mean for me?" Finn looked her in the eye. "It means you let me protect you this time. No more secrets?" Piper took Iris's hand, her voice low. "We'll fight her. Together." The old farmhouse was quiet for a long moment, but not heavy. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a war. And this time, the truth was on their side. Hazel's black SUV pulled onto Maple Drive, like a hearse gliding into a wake. The Vermont air didn't suit her. Too fresh. Too free. She stepped out of the car wearing a structured navy coat, leather gloves, and a stare sharp enough to split stone. Behind her sunglasses, her eyes scanned the quiet street, unimpressed. The farmhouse at the end of the road came into view. She barely acknowledged the door as she climbed the front steps and knocked. Not hard, not loud, but with the kind of authority that said she expected to be obeyed. Piper opened the door. Hazel lowered her glasses just enough to meet her gaze. "We need to talk." Piper didn't flinch. "We really don't." "Let me in, Piper," Hazel said coolly. "Or I'll have the conversation on your front porch, with an audience." Reluctantly, Piper stepped aside. Hazel walked in like she still owned the world. She spotted Iris almost instantly. The girl was curled up in the armchair with a book. But her eyes snapped up the second Hazel entered the room. Neither of them spoke, but the air turned electric. Hazel looked at Piper again. "You let her come to New York. Confront Finn. What were you thinking?" "I was thinking about her," Piper said. "Something you never did." Hazel let out a breathless laugh. "You think I did this to hurt her? Or you?" "I was protecting my son from a girl who would have derailed his future." "By threatening my family?" Piper shot back. "By forcing me to lie to him? That wasn't protection. That was control." Hazel's expression tightened, the veneer cracking slightly. "You don't understand the world Finn lives in. He needed discipline, focus. You would have turned him into someone happy?" Piper snapped. "Into someone human?" Hazel turned to Iris. "You think he's going to fix everything now, 13 years too late?" "I think he's trying," Iris said calmly. "And that's more than you ever did." Hazel blinked, stunned by the girl's composure. Her mouth opened to speak, but footsteps cut her off. Finn walked in. His suit jacket was off, sleeves rolled up, and for the first time in Hazel's memory, he looked like he wasn't playing a role. And he was furious. Earlier that morning, let's talk strategy, Diana said, closing the study door behind her. Finn stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the trees sway in the breeze. She's coming. We both know it. I figured, Diana replied. And when she does, she'll twist everything. She'll play the victim. She'll paint Piper as unstable. She'll say you're being manipulated. She'll try to undermine everything, Finn said. But she won't touch Iris. I won't let her. She's already tried, Diana muttered. That thing with Frank, she wanted power of attorney. If they got married, he'd have medical control. Finn's jaw locked. Diana leaned against the desk. So what do we do when she gets here? We stay unified, Finn said. She can't divide us anymore. She always controlled the story, Diana said. Now it's ours. He nodded. I want Piper to know I've got her back. And I want Iris to know she's not alone. She knows, Diana said. But Hazel's going to push every button she can find. Finn finally turned to face her. Then let her try. Back to the present. Hazel turned slowly as Finn entered the living room. Hello, Mother. Hazel lifted her chin. So this is how you treat family now? Hostile, defensive. Finn smiled without warmth. You don't get to define family anymore. Hazel's eyes flicked to Piper, then to Iris. Finn said, They reminded me who I am. And who is that? Hazel sneered. He stepped closer. A father, a partner, and a man who's not under your thumb anymore. Hazel narrowed her eyes. You forget who built this family name. No, Finn said. I remember exactly who corrupted it. Hazel's voice dropped to a hiss. Don't do this, Finn. I already have. He turned to Iris and held out his hand. She stood and walked over without hesitation. Piper stepped in beside them. And just like that, Hazel saw it. She'd lost him. Finn had chosen them, a father and a man still in love. Hazel stood in the center of the farmhouse living room, her coat still buttoned tight, but her composure cracking in the corners. I'm not finished, she said, the edge in her voice sharper now. You think you've won something? Piper, you've always been a liability. You think any agency will keep you when they find out who you really are. Piper stiffened. Excuse me? Hazel stepped forward. You violated contract agreements by hiding a child from a high-profile family. When I'm done making the calls, no one will touch your real estate license. You'll be blacklisted. Every deal, every sale, gone. Finn took a step toward her. Don't, he shouts. Hazel ignored him. I'll make sure your career is dead before Iris walks into that operating room. Enough, Diana said suddenly, her voice loud and clear. Hazel blinked and turned. Diana stepped out from the hall, her phone in hand, eyes locked on her mother. I warned you once. I begged you to stop this, but you won't. So here we are. Hazel's lips curled. What are you babbling about now? I've been digging, Diana said, walking into the room. Into Dad's death. You always said it was a heart attack. But the autopsy notes didn't match the insurance paperwork. And neither matched the hospital records. Funny how things go missing. Except they didn't. Hazel's face twitched. You're bluffing. I'm not, Diana said. You wanted Dad out of the way. You wanted the company. And when he started to push back, to suggest I should take over one day instead of Finn, you made sure that conversation ended. Hazel's voice dropped to a growl. You can't prove that? Check your email, Diana said. Hazel didn't move. I sent you a file, Diana said, with timestamps, statements, a copy of the toxicology amendment your lawyer buried. Your fingerprints are all over it. You're lying. No, Diana said calmly. I'm just finally telling the truth. Hazel's eyes darted to Finn. You believe this? Your sister emotional and jealous? I believe her, Finn said. And when we return to New York, I expect your resignation on my desk. Retirement. Immediate. No farewell speech. No press tour. You disappear from Cambridge Construction. Hazel looked between them. Piper, Iris, Diana, Finn. She was alone. And for once, she knew it. She turned slowly, walked to the door, and paused. "You made a mistake," she said. But her voice no longer held weight. "No," Finn replied. "You did. Over and over again." Hazel turned and left. And with her, the storm finally passed. Later that night, the farmhouse was quiet again. Finn and Piper sat at the dining table. Documents spread between them. This time, it wasn't war. They were planning for Iris. "She needs surgery within 6 weeks, Piper said, pointing to the report. "We've been holding off, but now—" "No more holding off," Finn said. "I've already called Dr. Lambert in Boston. He's the best. Pediatric valve replacement, high-risk cases. He'll take her." Piper exhaled slowly, relief washing over her like a wave. "I didn't know how I was going to pull it off. I was running out of time." "You don't have to do it alone anymore," Finn said gently. Then silence fell again, comfortable this time, not heavy. "I never stopped loving you," Piper said quietly. Finn looked at her. "I never stopped loving you." Her eyes welled up. "I hated you for leaving, even though I knew it wasn't your fault. I hated myself for not fighting harder," he said. "I let her break us." "But she didn't," Piper said, reaching across the table. "We're still here." He took her hand, and for the first time in over a decade, they allowed themselves to hope. Not just for Iris, but for a future they thought they'd lost. Together. The day before the consultation in Boston, Iris sat on the back porch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders and the early morning chill nipping at her fingers. Finn joined her quietly, 2 mugs in hand. She smiled. "You don't seem like the hot cocoa type." "I'm not," he said, handing her a mug. "But apparently it's a requirement around here." They sat side by side in silence, watching the mist curl through the trees. "Are you scared?" he asked Iris after a long pause. "Yes," she admitted, "mostly about leaving. My mom, if something goes wrong." Finn nodded. "You're not going anywhere, and nothing will go wrong." He looked at her then, steady and certain. "I won't let it." "You can't control everything," Iris said gently. "But thank you for wanting to." "I wish I'd known you sooner," he said. Iris tilted her head toward him. "I used to wish that too, but maybe now is what matters." She reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out a folded page, torn from her journal. She handed it to him. It was a handwritten note. "Please be there when I wake up." Finn's throat tightened. He folded the note back slowly, carefully, like it was something sacred. "I'll be there the whole time," he said. "Not just when you wake up." And she believed him. Elsewhere, in New York City, Diana stood in front of the glass windows of Cambridge Construction's headquarters, arms crossed, face calm, power radiating off her like sunlight on chrome. Her inbox was full. Journalists had already started reaching out. A few discreet legal professionals, one very interested media firm known for high-profile exposés. The file she sent them was real, verified, time-stamped, undeniable. Hospital records, legal notes, a forgotten email chain, enough evidence to suggest that Hazel Cambridge had not just watched her husband die, but had nudged fate along for the sake of a boardroom seat and empire control. Diana wasn't doing this to destroy the company. She was doing it to reclaim it, to scrub it clean of Hazel's shadow and rebuild it with transparency, honor, and, most importantly, truth. Diana sat at her desk, composed a new press release draft, and titled the document, "Legacy Rewritten." Her phone buzzed. Finn. Text. "We're heading to Boston tomorrow. Iris has the best, just like she deserves. Let me know when it drops." Diana smiled. Text reply. "The world will know the truth. You just focus on your girl. I've got the rest." She closed the laptop and looked out over the city their family helped build. This time, it would stand for something better. The waiting room at Boston Children's Hospital was too quiet, too white, too full of air that felt too still. Finn paced the floor like a general in a war zone. Piper sat on the edge of her seat, hands clasped in her lap, lips moving silently with every prayer she knew. Diana leaned against the far wall, keeping calm so Piper didn't have to. Iris had smiled as they wheeled her away. Just a soft, brave smile, like she wasn't the one going under the knife. She'd held both Finn and Piper's hands, looked them in the eye, and said, "I'll be okay. I've got all my people now." Finn had almost broken right there. Now the clock ticked too slow. Every time a nurse walked past, every time the door opened, Finn's heart jumped. A nurse finally appeared, after 2 hours. "She's doing well," she said. "Surgery is progressing as expected. Dr. Lambert is confident. We'll keep updating you every hour." Piper exhaled so hard it came out as a sob. Finn sat beside her, took her hand, and held it in silence. Neither one of them had words left. Just the weight. Just the hope. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Hazel Cambridge stepped out of her car onto the curb in front of Cambridge Construction headquarters. Her driver looked nervous. So did the security guard at the front desk. Something was off. She walked in with her usual clipped confidence, chin high. But the lobby was too quiet. Phones rang, but conversations hushed as she passed. Eyes tracked her every step. Her phone buzzed. News networks. Allegations emerge against Hazel Cambridge in shocking family investigation. She frowned, unlocked it, read the headline again. Her stomach dropped. A photo followed, the building's front facade with her name beneath it, and a caption, "Cambridge Empire Under Scrutiny." She turned and saw her reflection in the marble. For the first time in decades, she looked powerless. Her phone buzzed again. "Diana, this is what truth looks like. Welcome to it." She stormed upstairs, past her former assistant's empty desk, past Amelia, who refused to meet her eyes. When she opened the executive boardroom door, 6 members of the leadership team were already there, faces grim, files open in front of them. One of them stood up. "Effective immediately, we're initiating a formal internal investigation," he said. "You'll no longer be representing the company publicly. Per Finn's directive, we expect your retirement paperwork within 24 hours. Hazel didn't move. "You can't do this," she said, voice low. "It's already done," said another. Hazel turned, jaw clenched, her world cracking beneath her stilettos. And as she stormed out, the elevator dinged. Back in Boston, the final update came after 6 long hours. Dr. Lambert walked into the waiting room, mask lowered, his face relaxed. "She's stable. Surgery went well. No complications. The valve replacement was successful." Piper broke into tears instantly. Finn put his hand to his mouth and nodded, silent, overwhelmed. "She's in recovery. You can see her shortly, one at a time." Piper stood, trembling, but Finn gently touched her arm. "You go first," he whispered. She nodded and followed the nurse down the hall. Finn sat again, his head in his hands. Diana leaned down and kissed the top of his head. "She's going to be okay," she said. "We all are." A hospital room was quiet, except for the soft beeping of monitors and the occasional shuffle of nurses outside the door. Iris stirred gently, her eyes fluttering open as the anesthesia faded. Finn sat beside her, his hand already in hers. "Hey, Starbright," he whispered, voice low and warm. She blinked a few times, disoriented. Then she smiled. "You stayed. I told you I would." "You look like you haven't slept." He smiled. "I didn't. You gave me a few gray hairs today." She squeezed his hand. "Worth it." They sat in silence for a while. Kind that doesn't need to be filled. Then Iris turned toward him. a little more serious. "Are you going to stay?" she asked. "For real?" Finn leaned in. "I'm not going anywhere ever again." Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. "Good. Because I've got a lot of years to make up for. And I've got the rest of my life to give them to you." He kissed her forehead gently, and in that small, quiet room, everything that had once been broken began to mend. 6 months later, the Cambridge Empire didn't collapse. It evolved. Finn stepped down from day-to-day operations, handing the reins to Diana, his sister, the only one who had always seen the truth and never stopped fighting for it. Under Diana's leadership, Cambridge construction shifted focus from dominating skylines to making a difference. Less about steel and size, more about impact. The first major project under her new direction broke ground just outside Willow Creek, Vermont. The Charlotte Cambridge Children's Wellness Center, a state-of-the-art facility focused on pediatric cardiology and family care. It was inspired by Iris, funded by the company, built on land Charlotte once gardened with her grandkids. The ribbon cutting was quiet but beautiful. Iris wore a deep blue dress and a smile that didn't shake. She stood beside Diana and Finn as they unveiled the center's plaque. "For those who were loved into healing, in honor of Charlotte Cambridge, and for every child who needs a second chance." 1 year later, the farmhouse was full of music again. Iris sat on the porch steps, legs crossed, guitar on her lap. Finn's old acoustic, refinished, restrung, and now fully hers. He had taught her simple chords over the winter, slow and patient, just like Charlotte once taught him. She strummed a melody, not perfect, but honest. Piper stood in the doorway, arms folded, watching with quiet joy. Her daughter was healthy, her family was whole, her heart was full. Finn stepped out with 2 cups of tea. "I think we're ready," he said, smiling at Piper. "For what?" He walked down the steps, crouched beside Iris, and kissed the top of her head. "Mind if I borrow your mom for a second?" Iris smirked and kept playing. Finn walked up to Piper, took her hand, and pulled her gently to the edge of the porch. "I was going to ask you sooner," he said, "but I needed to make sure Iris was safe. I needed to be sure we had the time to build something solid." "You didn't have to wait," she said softly. "I did, because I want to do this the right way. No secrets, no regrets, no unfinished promises." He dropped to one knee. Piper gasped, covering her mouth. Finn pulled out a small ring, a sapphire, the color of Iris's eyes. "Marry me, Piper." She didn't hesitate. "Yes." Behind them, Iris kept playing. The melody wavered, then steadied, soft and full of light. Iris yelled out, "Can I have a sibling now?" Finn said, "Anything for you, my baby girl." Piper laughed. A family reborn, a legacy rewritten, and love, finally, without fear. The end. Hope you enjoyed listening to Green Tea Tales and help our channel grow by likes, shares, and subscribes.